Oh, happy Thursday and welcome to the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. I'm your host, Christian Fischer, and today we're gonna unleash the culinary revolution like no other, and there's nobody better than today's guest, Chef Lawrence. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Let's get started.
Thank you.
And welcome to the show. And I'm so excited to have Chef Lawrence here with me. I had the opportunity to meet Chef Lawrence a few years ago, and he has left a lasting impression on me because he's a visionary like no other. He's a professional chef, always was a disruptor, always was an entrepreneur. He did home meal replacement before it became popular. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you with Chef Lawrence because he's going to talk to us how you take that traditional deal we all what they'll say, hey, we as chefs, we can do nothing else, and what he's doing today. So Chef Lawrence, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you. Please take a few minutes and introduce our listeners to who Chef Lawrence is.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christian. This is exciting to be part of your show. Yeah, Chef Lawrence. I actually live in Escondido, California, which is in San Diego County. And this is the area in which I grew up. I grew up in a small farming community just north of San Diego called Valley Center. And this is kind of like where my entire culinary roots began. We had a small family farm where we raised much of all of our livestock that our family ate. We also had a home garden. And I'm the oldest of 6 children, so it was the most economic way for our parents to feed all of us. And my dad just happened to be the type of person that just loved to be in the kitchen, loved to showcase his culinary skills. And so I remember us as children were all gather around and watch him cook, and that's where I kind of felt the inspiration. I kind of felt like something inside me that maybe this is something that I should pursue later in my life. And so I was always drawn to the kitchen. If we were at a family party, at a friend's house, I was always in the kitchen, helping out, washing dishes, whatever it took. I just felt like that was my natural space. Really, my cooking kind of began when I was going to school at San Diego State University. I was renting a home, and one of my brothers was living with me, and he ran a farmer's market in a small beach community called Pacific Beach. And he would bring back crates of fresh produce. And so on Saturday night, the deal was is that we would cook a full-on home-cooked meal for all of our friends, and they can bring their friends as well. And it didn't cost them anything, but they had to bring the booze. So they would have to bring the wine or the beer, and my brother and I would just cook up all these elaborate meals. Well, it began to where all of a sudden it turned out to be like a big party. And I just always found
Awesome.
enjoyment in entertaining people with food. And then around the mid 90s is when I was involved with 2 internet startups. And I mean, that's a whole other discussion. We were a disruptor in the internet space in what we were doing.
I love that.
Yeah. But in the second company after we sold it, I had the idea of combining my passion with the internet with food. And then it was right around the year 2000 is when I came up with the concept called dinnerdelivery.net.
Mhm.
And we were the first meal prep home delivery business in San Diego County. I was very fortunate to be able to have that business for 20 years. I'm not formally trained. I taught myself. I knew I can do it. I had everything inside me to say that, hey, you can be a chef, and I just went for it. I got myself a commercial kitchen in Escondido, and actually my commercial kitchen was a part of a senior retirement community, so we ran the kitchen for the facility, and I was able to run my business out of there. It was about a year and a half ago is when I lost the lease on the kitchen.
Mhm.
And so I was definitely in turmoil because my business is what supported my family.
Yeah.
It's what allowed my wife to stay home for almost 18 years to raise our 2 children. It's what bought our house. It was our sole source of income for the family. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of stress and a lot of question marks on what I was going to do. I did find another commercial kitchen. I was pursuing to get that certified, but it quickly came to me through the health department that this was going to be a long process because the
Yeah.
kitchen wasn't certified for a long time. So One morning I looked in the mirror and I looked deep into my eyes and I asked myself, do you really have it in you to move into another kitchen and almost start over again? And I said no. And that answer no is what led me to me making a career transition into where I am now.
That's just an amazing story, and I heard that story a few times. But it moves me every time when you talk about, there's so many chefs in our industry which feel like they want to do something else. But you now in the '90s, you gotten into that internet space where you said, "Hey, I want to do something else. I want to do this home delivery." That wasn't common back in the '90s.
Mhm.
Kind of give us a little bit what went through your mind, and how did you take not just the courage? I mean, it takes a lot of guts to saying, "Hey, I want to get out of the restaurant space because it's a safe space. I want to get out of what I'm currently doing. I want to start something totally different." I mean, how many unknowns? Give us and the listeners a little bit. How do you make that transition? There's a lot of chefs out there which would love to do that, but you said it on your second career with all of the stuff you have going on and taking care of your family. That's a huge gamble. So how did you do that? What went through your mind? Give the listeners a little bit of an idea of how you made this happen.
Yeah, that's a great question, Chef, because it was very emotional. I mean, when I made that decision, no, I was saying no to a big part of my life. And I went through like a grieving process as I transitioned out of the culinary world into something else. And I didn't even know what that something else was. I just knew I
Yeah.
had to. Um, One part of it is when I looked in the mirror and said, do you really have this in you? Not only did I say no, but I was also not liking cooking anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sat down and I really looked and said to myself, a major part of your character is cooking, is your
Yeah.
passion for food. Do you really want to destroy that part of your life from here on out by just forcing yourself to stay into something safe? I mean, I had an established client base. I had, I mean, 70% of our customers are coming back every week. I mean, I could have kept floating in, I could have kept going, but I was not about to destroy something that I loved. So I had
Yeah.
to take stock on what other skills do I have besides cooking that I love doing. And this goes back to what you just said is about the internet. I've always loved the internet marketing. I'm good at it. I understand it. And so I sat down and I outlined all my other skills that I had that wasn't culinary related. Then I
Yep.
sat down in another column and I outlined all the skills that I acquired by being a chef. And then I said, what kind of job profile or what kind of job description would I look for that would encapsulate everything that I have and still allow me to feel happy at my job, feel like I was making a difference, and
Yep.
more importantly, allow me to be kind of a natural leader that I've always found myself to be. And so those were kind of the thoughts that I had. And then that was the transition was by taking stock on what I had and what I can actually do with it. And once I had that down, the job that I'm currently at now in a company called Bronzery,
Yeah.
the job listing came up on Indeed, and I had the job within 2 weeks.
That's amazing. I want to go back to that moment where you started this new venture in the '90s. Not only did you make a complete shift in your career, I mean, you made a shift off from an employee to an owner. So I'm sure there's always challenges coming up. I'm sure you had challenges coming up. What was one of those two really profound challenges you had to overcome, and how did you overcome them?
Just to clarify, are you asking me like when I was back in the internet? What was the
Correct.
challenge? Like the
Yeah, in the
challenges for
'90s with the home meal replacement
yeah.
program you had.
Well, the biggest challenge is that I wasn't I wasn't formally schooled in
Yeah.
culinary. I mean, it was just basically me having a handful of recipes and just a belief that I can do it. So, the biggest thing in the home prep business, the biggest obstacle that I had to overcome is that I'm cooking food that's being packaged fully cooked,
Yeah.
being delivered cold to then be reheated so that the customer has an experience as if they cooked the meal themselves. And the vegetables was my biggest obstacle. How do I prepare vegetables to be packaged to then be reheated so that they're not raw to the texture, they're perfectly al dente, and they're not mushy. And that
Yeah.
was like the biggest thing for me to figure out how to do that.
It's,
And then in
it's
addition,
amazing, especially for me, when you talk about vegetables, I like mine crunchy. I like mine just slightly undercooked. And I think it must have been super difficult to do that. I'm super fascinated by that.
yeah, I mean, with the piece of equipment in my kitchen that really I used the most was a steamer. It was a
Yeah.
Vulcan
Yeah. Yeah.
steamer. And so we had to blanch everything to just perfection in order for it to be packaged just right to be reheated. So that was one of the biggest obstacles. Actually, in the very beginning, I ran the business out of my home. I was living in
Wow.
a beach community called Oceanside. First, it was Encinitas and then Oceanside. Just like probably any other chef that's watching this that started a catering business, where do we start? Out of our home. So that was also like, how do you organize your home kitchen to be a production kitchen, but also be your home kitchen? And how do you keep your ingredients separate from your home ingredients? So that was a big challenge, trying to figure out the workflow and doing that.
It's for me, it's just amazing. And when you tell this story, you make it sound so easy. And there's a lot of chefs out there I talk to almost on a daily basis, which say, it's I want to do something different. I feel I'm called to do something else. I know there's some transferable skills I have. They just never have. I don't want to call it the courage, but they don't have the courage to make that pivot. And I know sometimes, the whole philosophy, if you want to conquer the island, burn the boats kind of idea. That's just really difficult if you have to support a family. And that, let me get into your second career. So now you did this for over 20 years and were successful at it. So how did you make that pivot to that really cool? I don't even know what to call it. Your new the memorabilia which you bronze, and it's this really super special, emotional, personalized gift, which I'm super fascinated by it, by the way. How did you make that pivot? So now you had this as the owner, working for yourself for 20 plus years, going into that new career. And you said that job came up and you found it to get that job very easily. So tell the listeners a little bit of, first off, what that business is, because I think everybody should know. If you have a memorable experience in your life, please, listeners, you guys got to reach out to Lawrence, and he needs to take that something and put it into this really personalized bronzery gift. Can you tell our listeners a little bit what the bronzery is and how did you make that pivot? And you're in it now for over a year. How did you make that pivot and be successful at it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when I reflect back on it, I still like, wow, how did I do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Bronzery, what we do is we're the only company in the United States that can take any sort of special item and we can artistically metallic plate it in a bronze, silver, or 24 karat gold finish to where it's now a special piece of memorabilia. So instance, one of the first things that comes to people's minds is baby shoes. So we
Yeah.
do a lot of baby shoes. That's a very special, memorable item in a parent's life. We also do a lot of stuff for professional sports, where sports teams will send us their athletes' cleats or their glove or their hat or their helmet or football. And we'll artistically preserve it so that that athlete can commemorate that special moment in their life. And so, and actually, this company, like I said, we're the only one in the United States, and actually, it's only 8 minutes from my house. That was also the most remarkable thing. It wasn't something we're working remote. I mean, I found this thing on Indeed, and it's just right down the street from me. So
That is amazing.
what a manifesting coincidence that was. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what we do. And I'm the marketing and sales director. And what you just asked, Chef, just earlier when you were asking me, how to make that transition, is exactly what one of the investors asked me. He said on the interview, he's all, dude, you're a chef. Why would I hire you?
Love that.
I mean, you've been in the culinary world for 20 years. What do you know about sales and marketing? And I looked at him, it was on a Zoom interview, and I looked at him and I said, listen, I go, what you do is no different than what I did for 20 years. You're in the business of preserving people's stories. I was in the business of selling stories behind my food. That's really the only difference. You're taking a
That's
personal
amazing.
item, artistically crafting it into a memorabilia that they're going to have for generations. I artistically created food that they use to nourish themselves and to bring enjoyment in their life at that moment. I sold a story behind my food of what it's going to do for them. You sell a story behind what your service is going to do for them. there's no difference. And how we're delivering that message, there's no difference.
Yeah.
And once he heard that, he just hired me on the spot. So like you said, I've been there for over a year and a half, and a lot of what I learned as being a chef is what I apply on a daily basis, and I absolutely love what I do. And it just, and I have my weekends back,
That's
and
amazing.
I
And
have
you
my
said,
holidays back.
as a chef, we really don't know what holidays are.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful. One of the organizations I own and started and founded is the Culinary Executive Mastermind. It's a group of individuals which Chef Lawrence is part of, to be part of and be teaching ourselves and holding ourselves accountable to a higher standard. And what we're hearing a lot is what you just said. So let me ask you that question. So if you would look ahead and if you would have to talk to somebody about that, you call it transferable skills. So what advice would you give to somebody who knows they have transferable skills and want to get out of the industry? What you just said, I want to have my weekends back. And I honestly believe there's one thing COVID taught us is that our industry is very fragile. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's super important to be with friends and family. So if somebody and a listener is on the cusp of doing something, what advice would you give somebody if they want to transition out of the industry and how they can leverage some of those transferable skills?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, kind of what I did. I mean, first of all, there's other things in your life besides cooking. I mean, I know that, being a chef and being good, it comes, I mean, you're putting your whole heart and your soul into it. And I know that, and you have to drive that passion 100% to be successful in the food business. But there are other things that you've got to be interested in as well, besides just food.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would allow yourself to explore that side of you and just ask yourself, what if I had a job in this other passion? What would it look like? And what skills would it take? And do some research. I mean, go on Indeed, go on Google Jobs and find other jobs that come close to what that other passion is and look at what they're requiring as skills. Then look at your skill set as being a chef. I mean, for an example, let's just look at what are the skills you acquire being a chef. One, we're able to hit deadlines all the
Yep.
time. Our deadlines are moving constantly throughout the day. All of a sudden, you got food service at 5 p.m. and certain things need to be done by 5 p.m. Well, all of a sudden there's a hiccup. It just got
Mm-hmm.
pushed back at 6 p.m. because someone was late for their catering or whatever. Well, all
Yeah.
of a sudden, what do you do with all the food that was just ready for 5 p.m.? You got to find a way to preserve it so that at 6 p.m. it's just as good as if it was at 5 p.m. So that's one skill that we have, is that we're able to hit deadlines at a constant, at moving deadlines at any time. Plus, we're multitaskers. I
Yep.
mean, anytime in the kitchen, you probably have probably 4 to 6 different dishes going on at one time. You got stuff in the convection ovens. You got stuff braising in the regular gas oven. You got stock, and you got a sauce simmering on the back burner. You also got stuff in the steamer. You got the prep station going. So I mean, we're using all of our senses to multitask so that everything comes together at the end. So look at all the different things that you're required to do as a chef. Write all
Yep.
those skills down. Look at the skills that you need for your job, and you will figure out a way, if you really want it, how to merge the two together. I also hired a career consultant to write my
Oh, I
resume
love that. I love
and
that.
put together my cover letter, because a lot of stuff now is electronic when you submit your resume. So it's you need to have those keywords, but it's helpful to have someone that you can bounce your idea off of and get their feedback on it as well. I hope
That's
that answers what
amazing.
you're looking for, Chef.
Yeah, no, again, I'm super fascinated. By the way, I hope the listeners find this as inspirational as I do. Not only have you pivot careers once, you did it twice and successfully done so. So if you guys, by the way, you guys need to follow Chef Lawrence on Instagram, TikTok, and all the great things. He does some amazing TikToks. He is a gifted salesperson. He's more than just a chef and something else. He's absolutely amazing. And then every time I hear you talk about those memorable gifts, so if one of our listeners has an old chef knife they want to throw away, please send it to Chef Lawrence and he can bronze it. If you're looking for a really cool gift for Christmas or for a birthday, please reach out to Chef Lawrence and he can guide you through it to give some really memorable experience.
Well,
So
we've
for
done chef
me,
hacks too.
Yeah, I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
they're
So
awesome looking.
I'm so fascinated with that pivoting twice. So there's all of those things which come at you. Looking back, what do you think the experiences you learned the most of? And give our listeners a little bit, because a lot of people feel they stuck. And you talked a little bit about what those transferable skills are. What else, besides the few things you have mentioned, would prevent somebody from culinary burnout and trying to do something else? But let's start out with, what did you learn from all of these experiences? So if somebody would talk to you and say, Chef Lawrence, you did this twice, what is the single biggest thing you learned from that experience?
Well, I'm going to use a culinary analogy. Something that I learned very early on in my teaching myself how to cook is that you got to allow yourself to simmer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like having a stock sitting on the back burner or a sauce. You got to allow a sauce or a good stock to come into its own. You can add all the
Mm-hmm.
ingredients, and for myself, all my ingredients was personal development, goal setting, being part of your mastermind, being surrounding myself with good people like you. But if I didn't allow myself to just unfold and to come into my own, I wouldn't have gotten this opportunity. So
Mm-hmm.
going back to when I said that I had to go through this grieving process, I realized that when I decided that I was going to shut down my business, dinner delivery, that I went through like a good 2 month grieving process, and I allowed myself to grieve. I mean, I
Yeah.
cried. I went through a depression. I realized that if once I made that decision that I was shutting off that part of my life and transitioning to something else, I can't allow my past to even have a remote attachment to me, because it would
Mm-hmm.
pull me back from the new transition that I wanted to make. So if you do make that transition from something you love, you're going to feel depressed. You're going to feel sad, but that's okay. Allow yourself to do it, get through it in your own time. Like I said, allow yourself to simmer, allow yourself to come into your own flavor. And then when you're ready to make that jump, you're going to be ready to make that jump 100%. And you're going to go through it with a lot of passion. And you're going to feel like you have a new leash on life, that
Yep.
you're writing a whole different chapter in your life. And how exciting is that to be able to write another chapter in your life? Because like you said, Chef, a lot of people say they want to and they don't, and it's just a shame. It's exciting.
I I honestly believe we all have a gift and we all called to do something else. And it doesn't necessarily mean you need to leave the culinary industry and you're super active. By the way, Chef Lawrence is part of our culinary executive mastermind. If any of you guys want to know about it, just email us at info@christianjfisher.com and we can guide you through it, how to become a member and be part of that group. And what we discovered through that, and we talked about those transferable skills earlier. What are one or two transferable skills you believe chefs have they are probably not aware of?
Well, first of all, I think some chefs don't see themselves as marketers.
Mm-hmm.
We are salespeople. We are marketers. I mean, when you design a menu or put a new menu item on there, you're trying to sell a story behind that menu item to get people to pay the 18, 25, $30 per plate. And
Mm-hmm.
the customer knows that they can go out with that same amount of money and go to a grocery store and eat 5 times more meals than just paying for one. But we're marketers because you're selling the story behind that dish. So look at yourself as a marketer and salesperson, number one. Number two, I have an acronym for myself called CSI. I'm in a constant state of CSI. I'm in a constant state of improvement. And that's what chefs are. With technology changing the culinary world right now, how international flavors have now, it's made it easier for consumers now to experience different international flavors, how
Yeah.
chefs from other parts of the world are coming and creating and melding different things from like Southern influence with African to Thai. You have to constantly stay on top of what the current trends are. And you have to be self motivated as a chef to do that, because no one that you're working for is telling you to do that. You have to do that to keep your job and to make your restaurant successful. So that's another skill that we have, is that we're self motivators to constantly educate ourselves, keep ourselves ahead of the curve so that we're better at what we do, and that we're also sharing that with our staff and making them more productive.
I
So
love that.
which leads me to the last one, is we're natural leaders.
I love that. And For me, the whole idea of leadership was so important that I started a nonprofit now, almost 10 years ago, the Culinary Leadership Academy, because a lot of chefs don't believe they're good leaders, and they are. And what we teaching, the chefs and entrepreneurs which come to our site, how to kind of awaken and discover that natural leadership you all have in the culinary industry. And I'm super excited and super grateful that I'm able to support the Culinary Institute with that. By the way, if any of you guys are listening and you're listening, please send us an email to info@christianchefischer.com and mention that you want to get a part of our leadership course, and we give that leadership course away for free. So please mention today's episode, write in Chef Lawrence, and we get you on to that leadership course for free. My last question for you is, do you believe pursuing a passion, a gift, something I'm super excited about to share in somebody's life and career is important?
Do I feel that it's important for you to have that excitement in your career?
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you probably know the stat better than I do, how many hours we spend in our job. I mean, so it's important to be able to have that passion and that drive, because I believe that your career is a part of your character. I mean, when you pass, what is one of the things that people talk about in your eulogy? The type of job you
Yeah.
had. So what do you want people to say about you when that time comes? I mean, do you want people to say that you were a great chef, but you didn't like it anymore and you got grouchy? And for me, it drove me to alcoholism. I mean, do you want to be at
Yeah.
that too? I mean, that was one of the reasons why I had to make a life change as well. Um, but so yeah, that passion and that drive, it draws people into who you are as a person. And I carry over my passion that I have my career in the other aspects of my life, like when I coach youth baseball
Yeah.
and when I'm out there mentoring teenagers. So absolutely, you got to have that passion, because it gives you a reason to wake up and go do it.
That's awesome. So my staff handed me just a sheet, Chef Lawrence.
Okay.
My staff is super excited about the opportunity to have you here on our show, and they also feel that our listeners need to learn a little bit more about you. I have rapid fire questions, so you're up to do a few of them.
Yes, absolutely.
So, they are mean. They are mean. So, coming from a disruptive side, if there is one ingredient you can pan from the culinary industry forever, what is it and why?
Ketchup.
Why?
And the reason why is because I think ketchup is used as a crutch to hide the flavors of food. And there's
That's
not,
awesome.
I mean, if you want the taste of ketchup, just eat a tomato.
That's awesome. I love that. You're probably going to get some grief for that.
Yeah.
What chef's tool do you believe is highly overrated?
What chef's tool do I think is highly overrated? You know what? I think and I don't know if this is the right word, but a saute spoon or,
Mm-hmm.
a spatula. I think tongs works better for doing that. I think tongs is probably the best tool you have. So yeah, a saute spoon or a spatula.
I think you're going to get some grief for that too. What dish have you created which broke all the rules?
Which dish I've created that has broken all the rules? Whoa, man. What dish? You got me on that one, chef.
I told you they were mean. They are
They are
mean
mean.
people.
Well, I'm trying to think of something I make it just at home that disgusts my wife and my kids. You know what? I think what breaks all the rules. All right, here it is. When I make a Chicago dog, because my wife is from Chicago, and they're very particular about how certain things, with the name Chicago is in it, they're very particular how certain ingredients are. I feel that it's very important to use red sauerkraut.
You gotta get some grief. There's some people
Yeah.
from Chicago which are very mad at you right now.
Yeah.
If you would have to combine two ingredients, what would they be? And two ingredients which make traditionalists cringe.
If I had to combine two ingredients, and when they're combined, it would make people cringe. Like, um, how about, sometimes I like making a machaca burrito with chorizo. Talk about being rough on your gut, but
Oh
with
my God.
potatoes. So machaca burrito with chorizo and potatoes. That is
Okay, I'm mad at you right now. Um, okay, our last question for you today is: what disruptive idea do you have to enhance today's dining experience?
I think the disruptive idea is that it seems like the consumers really don't want that personal touch anymore. They just want their food fast, and they don't want to have to talk to anybody. And so I think that's a disruptive thing that needs to be explored, and it's already being done. So
Yeah.
that would be my
No,
disruptive idea.
I I absolutely love that. First off, Chef Lawrence, thanks for being part of this conversation. I always learn something new. And by the way, if I have a page of notes, I love CSI. I love simmering. So I will use this all the time. I will give you absolutely no credit for it, but I will use
I
that
know
all the
that.
time. It's amazing. I just want to really say heartfelt thank you for making yourself vulnerable and share with your experience, because what you talked about is really emotional to a lot of chefs. And I have a lot of really good friends, which I can see, because I honestly believe we all need somebody who sees in us what we don't see in ourselves.
Mhm.
They have amazing skills outside of food, but they never work up the courage to take that pivot and make that switch. And we teaching in one of our other programs, you don't need to do it overnight. You start small, do it on the side, 5 hours a week. And we do the same with teaching people to write books. In our program, we teach chefs how to write a book in 8 weeks or less. And one of our star students wrote 5. And it had a huge impact in his life. He made $400,000 in writing 5 books.
Wow.
So for me, that's a great way of just getting in. If you think of the just not just the career changes and everything you did, what are one or two things besides a mentor people need to do today to have an impact tomorrow?
Well, first of all, you just got to know where you want to go in your life, and then you just work it kind of backwards.
Hmm.
And you got to do it daily. It's a daily exercise. It's not something that you just do once a year and then you set it aside and forget about it. I wake up at 6 a.m. and for an hour and a half I work on myself. I read
Yeah.
something that gets me going, and I remind myself why I'm doing this. And then something that was very not part of my life that I really brought back into my life is writing 5 things that you're grateful for every day. Because if you can live your life with a high sense of gratitude, it makes everything so much easier when you make a decision that you want to transition into something else.
I love that. That's super powerful. So before we sign off here with you, if you love this episode, first off, just bookmark our website, or even better, become part of our community, become part of the Chefs Disruptor community by going to disruptivechef.club. Join our club. It's absolutely for free. You're going to get the latest and greatest. We share some new ideas. If you sign up to that group today, I encourage you to look at an email you're going to get in a day or two. We have an amazing event planned on December the 14th, which is our goal setting workshop. And we have an amazing guy. His name is Brandon, which hosts this for us every year. And for me, I just love this because I think we need all to do some goal setting, and not just only goal setting. He has some really cool tips and tricks on getting your shit done. And for me, I just looked at my goals from last year. I hit 90% of them. And the first thing I thought is I need to play bigger. Because it's just really amazing. So again, sign up to disruptivechef.club. Go over there, become part of the community. You won't regret it. There's some really cool stuff over there. Now, Chef Lawrence, I want to say thank you for the gift of your time. I just looked, we over a half hour. I know I can talk to you forever. I have a page of notes, and you and I have been having conversations for the last 2 years. for me, it was super important to expose our listeners to you, not just the way you look at life, the way you look at, supporting your family and what you do, is the amazing human being you are. Because one thing I learned breaking out and starting something on your own, you learn really quick who you are as a person.
Mhm.
And if you don't come from the right way, you never succeed. And I honestly believe that's the reason 90% of the restaurants fail. The chefs don't do it for the right reason.
Yep.
And you are not just only a good friend to me, you've been an amazing human being. Like I said, I love hanging out with you. I love learning from you. And I just want to say thank you for the gift of your time. So for our listeners, by the way, we have a full transcript on the bottom where we're going to show how to sign up for all of that. But I want you to tell our listeners, how can people follow you? How can people get a hold of you if they have questions or want to know more about your CSI? Or, hey, talk to me about simmering. Or let me give everybody a little hint. Nobody listening? He's writing a book as well. So Chef Lawrence, how can our listeners find you?
Yeah, two simple ways. And if anyone ever wants just my opinion or help you out when you're making the transition, I'm here for you. I like to see people succeed in their dreams. My email address is Lawrence, as you see right there, LAWRENCEJ, as in John, Martineau at gmail.com. And then on Instagram, I still have my dinner delivery Instagram page up there. You can just go and say let's look up dinner delivery on Instagram, and you can message me there, and I will get back to you.
Awesome. I want to
And also,
say
I'm on
thanks.
LinkedIn. You can look at me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on theirs too.
And Kit, TikTok. So if you guys gonna go on TikTok, he does amazing TikToks. Every time I work up the mustard to do a TikTok, I watch it yours and I put mine off because you're amazing at it. So I want to say thanks for being here today. Until the next show, remember we coming live every Monday and every Thursday. Remember to disrupt the kitchen, fire up your career, and stay hungry for change. I'm Christian Fischer, the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. Be the change, be the challenge, and as a chef, set the world on fire and stay disruptive. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.